Okay, today I would like to talk to you about all the information you need to have about getter, setter, apply, and update. These are really useful information for your daily programming. You have to understand how getters and setters work. And for the more pro users of you, I will add the apply and update information as well as why you basically should not use the setter, but more about that during the information that we will see now. Okay, so let's start with what I prepared. I prepared for you a main view, the controller, and what do we have here? We have a text field which comes with a reference of first field, and we have a custom container with the reference CC. I will mainly use for the beginning the custom container. As you can see, I added a value background, which is green right now. You can see here green. If I enter here red and I set background, it changes to red. And if I add in here something like blue, press that background, it turns white. So this is intended. Let me just go over what I did to achieve this. Mainly what I did is that I said I added a config with the background white. This is how it should be initially for the component. In the main view, I said the background should be green. That's why if we restart this, it's set to green. And typically, whenever you add something in a config, you will get the getter and the setter automatically. I'm just writing these things in here so that you can see exactly how these work and how you can make use of these things the best way it's possible. In here we do have the setter. Initially, when we set this, it will say, okay, get me to the getter. So let's just add here a debugger so that we can step through all these different points. We're getting into the set background because we added to the config the background, and the first one will be the green indicator, which we set in the main in here. This is where the green comes from, and because we set it in the config background, it will call the set background right away. So the first thing that the automatically generated set background will do is grab the old background. The old background was not set, so that it says, okay, it's the old background, which was in here, is now. 10, F10. So now we have the old background of now. Now it says, if there is an apply function, then go through the apply function and add the new background color and the old background color. Let's go F11. And in here it says, this is an array with all the colors which I want I want the user to be able to use to allow these colors, which is white, green, and red. That's why blue was not possible to enter blue, but we'll go over that again. F10. And now we have, if the color which we get is not within the array, then make it white. Currently we do have green. Green is part of the allowed colors. So if I press F10, it skips it and returns the background. So background color still is green. Now we set the current background color, which is stored within the component, to the color which we entered. And now we go to a different functionality, which is the update background. And again, we pass the current color, now new color, and the old color. So let's go with F11. And everything that I'm doing in here is I say, okay, set style background. So this is pretty simple. It's just to show how the getter and setter works. So with F10, let's add 8, and you can see we get the green color here. So this is what we went through in here. Now, if I enter blue in here, which is not part of my allowed background colors, so let's go here with blue, press set background. I just F8 it, and now it's white. The white color is because this is our fallback color. If someone enters a wrong color, then just make it plain white. If someone enters red, and I set background, it will be red. Okay? So if I add in here the blue, and I will start this. Now I enter blue in here, we get the blue. So why do we have to, why did I write all this in here? This shouldn't be necessary, right? So let's just delete these and see what happens now. It's green. If that wouldn't work, it wouldn't be green, because our standard container doesn't have this background. So if I enter here blue, we will get a blue background. So even without this working, or with this writing these lines here, it works. What Sencha does is it automatically generates the getter, the setter, and it allows an apply and an update. It won't generate the apply and update, it will just check if we wrote them. If so, use them. Now, for the pro user, how can we check out what the original Sencha says? I just set in here a set background, function, and here we have background color. And for this, we are going to say this dot call parent arguments, and now we're just adding here a debugger. And if you're going for a getter, setter, apply, and update, and this call parent, whenever you go for this call parent, there's a standard routine that's called by Sencha, and we are going to step through these. This is a bit more for the pro user, for the intermediate user, and not for the beginner to understand it right away. We're getting into the F10, and now I press F11 to step into the callParent method. And now I press F10, F10, F11. And now we are right in the method which this callParent calls. It's always F10, F10, F11. And in here you can see that there are a lot of cryptic information. Doesn't really matter because the internal internal name will be figured out on its own. Now that we have the internal name, it's background. So the setter was meant for the config background. And it tries to get the old value now, the same as I had before. If you remember, the first thing I did, I was grabbing the old value. So we have undefined because initially when we set green, it was undefined before. Then it says just delete the get background. Doesn't really matter what that does for you. It's created afterwards. And now it says if me apply name, so if there is an apply background, then run this apply background. And if it returns undefined, do nothing. Yeah. Only continue if, let me just check figure. So everything within this if part won't be processed in case the apply functionality returns undefined. And then it goes, so what we do in here, we always return a valid value. What we could do is, if it is not within this allowed background, we could return undefined, and it would stick with the initial color that was set before, with the old background initial. And then it says, if the value is not different from the old value, so the background is the same as the old background. Skip the next part. Now that we do have a different value and our applier, which basically is more of a validation if the value was what we wanted it. So let's add here Validator. So this is basically a validator. And now that we have a valid value, we have a different value from what was set before, then it will set the background to the new value. And if we have an updater, which you do have in here, update background, so if I look in here, update background is the function name which it's looking for. If we wrote an updater, then it will add the updater, will run the update functionality. Now, what will happen if we do not add anything in here? Let me just say in here, console log background, and in here we added button. So if I add a setback, now we are getting to the point which I mentioned in the description of this video, that why do we don't want to use the set background function. Now we're getting to that information. Now let's run this. We're running it. The watcher. Okay. It ran the set background, but we do not have a green background. And this is due to the fact that we overrode the set background, but we are not doing the standard functionality of the set background. So keep in mind, if you have a config function and you override the background with the set background method, then these won't be called out of the box. Neither the set background will write the background information to the background. So everything you would have to do on your own. There's no way in overwriting a method, and what you would have to do is to say this callParent, to ensure that the base functionality is called. So that's why I highly emphasize, if you're setting a config, you do not use the setter. And this brings me to the point where I would say in a controller, never ever use the set something, set background, something like that. Always go with the update function. So this is basically my update the DOM. In here, I want to update the DOM. I want to, whatever has to be done should be done in the update function. Do not use the setter. This is base knowledge for everyone who programs ExtJS. So what we started with was writing our own getter and setter. We don't have to do that. If I go in here and I say, call for this get background and we do get green. This is how you should work. Make sure that you use the update functionality for all your configs. If you want to check before you write something into your custom container here, use the Applier functionality for Validator, and that's basically it. There are a lot of things that are a bit more difficult. For example, if you start to change the label for something, you have to make sure that you fully understand the functionality. So let's go with the text field and with the label CLS_extra, which I added in here. It says set label, but it's not bindable. So let's take a look at removing this. And whenever something is bindable, you will see this bind here. Again, for modern, almost everything is bindable. For classic, almost half of the items are bindable. If you want to make something bindable on your own, if you want to bind a config, you have to have a getter and setter. You have to have a setter, not a getter, but yeah. Let's just stay with that. If you want to make something bindable, which is not yet bindable, the easiest way would be to add a config of the same item. So let's again search here for label CLS_extra, which is not bindable. It doesn't have this yellow button behind it which says bindable. Let's go for our text. Okay, so in here we override it for the text, but in here it says it comes from xform label. So don't we have to override the labelable? That would be a valid question. Let's take a look for the sources. The sources say that xform labelable is a mixin. A mixin means all the functionality which is part of this xform labelable will be parsed into the text field, so that the text field gets all the information that are in this file. If they are already in the file, they won't be added. If they are not in the file, they will be added. That's basically the type of thing that a mixin is. Now that we understand that everything from this labelable is part of the text field, we are good to go. We can say add a config. Initially set it to now. If you set a value initially, the setter will be running initially, and to keep the work as low as possible, I don't do that. For the update label for the label clsExtra, this will be initially parsed. Whatever is in here will be initially parsed without the updater. That's part of. Let me just go back into the sources. And we can have label extra. We can see that these data are gathered initially and then used in the render template. In here, in the render template, they are added initially without us doing anything. That's why I'm saying if the component is still created, don't do anything, return. And for that, I'm using search for this label element. There's a data href, data ref, which says label element, and these things that are child elements can be called with this label element. So child elements, this dot something will be created as a shortcut so that we get this label out of the box with calling this label element. The next thing I'm doing is I just toggle, so if the old label is inside, remove it from the CLS. If the new one is not yet inside, remove it. And this is how our update label CLS will automatically work, and we are not using the setter. Initially, this is not bindable, it's not a config. We added it to the config. Before that, there was no getter or setter label clsExtra, but we want to have that bindable. And so that we can, on the fly, add a new label clsExtra with changing data. And for that to work, we use the update, not the getter, not the setter. We use the update label extra, and that's basically all that is to know about it. And it would be awesome if you like what you see and would subscribe. You would leave a message for me, something like what you would like to see next. If you ever have used getters and setters as much as I told you about right now, today, and if you would leave me more information if this was anyhow helpful for you, and if you learned something new. So, have a nice day. Thanks a lot for your time, and see you next time.